Good evening and welcome to the Hanson Economic Development Committee meeting of March 20th. I am hereby calling this meeting to order at 5:36. I'd like to announce for those in attendance, which is all one person, that this meeting is being recorded for distribution on Whitman-Hanson Community Access. Playback times and other related information on this recording can be found at WHCA.tv. And with us this evening is Mr. Ernst and Mr. Cohen and myself, Ms. Kemet and Mr. DeVries, who's our town planner. And in our audience, I do not want to kill your name, so
Rhiannon.
Okay, Rhiannon Dugan.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So our first order of business is to approve the minutes from February 21st, 2024. I hope you guys had a chance to read them, and if so, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So second.
Okay, any further discussion?
No.
Okay, great. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're moving along. That brings us to master plan presentation by Rhiannon Dugan and members of the Old Colony Planning Council, she's representing tonight, on scope, goals, and process of updating and approving the master plan. Okay, great. I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. So I won't drag it out too much because I'd rather actually hear from you guys. But I wanted to catch you up to speed on where we're at because the process is moving along very quickly. So we've officially closed the survey as of this Monday. I am finishing manually inputting everybody who did it by hand.
How many responses did you get?
When I'm done inputting, we should be between 250 and 260.
Oh, that's not
Nice.
bad.
Yeah,
For-
so
You had a good
Yeah.
rollout
Yeah,
there.
we were stagnant on that 60 that first week.
Right,
we were
right,
nervous,
yeah.
so we've made a full turnaround. Got a couple hundred, so that was great. We've had the first 2 public meetings already. We had small crowds at both, but really impactful and important conversations about a lot about the process and why we're doing it, and a little bit about conservation. I would say trail work and land preservation was of big interest. So we have a steering committee formed, which Kevin sits on as well, and they have received the first 3 drafted chapters, which so far are the introduction, facilities, and land use.
Oh,
No one's telling me I'm wrong yet, so that means I'm right.
Well, they're not on the screen because they're sequestered by
Yes.
your email. So
At this point, they are just for the steering committee to review, slaughter, do what they will with them, and then I will take them back and revise, and then they can go out to a larger crowd. But overall, our deadline is June 30th, so we're moving very quickly. Every 2 weeks, they'll get 2 to 3 chapters to review. And let's see what else. In late May, early June, we'll do a final get-together that'll have final public meeting that'll have all the action items and objectives that have come through from the
when are you saying late June?
late May, early June.
Late May, early June. Okay.
Just in case there's any last minute tweaks or maybe an action that we should add that will help them get to the larger goal.
adjustments,
Adjustments.
tweaks,
And, okay.
adjustments.
And what kind of feedback are you getting about facilities?
Facilities were overall really strong. So we interviewed with department heads. So we met with the police department and the fire department and were able to speak to them. And Hanson Police feels good about the building that they have. They have adequate space to grow.
They didn't say anything about their HVAC system?
Everybody has said something about their
Yes,
HVAC
okay,
system.
all right.
I think in every building that the town of Hanson owns. Excuse me. And then the fire department is looking to move towards a feasibility study.
Yes, yeah.
So
Yeah.
all of that is captured in the facilities chapter. And then also discussion about the library and council on aging and
Mhm.
getting them more space each.
What about the hiring guys? New building?
New building at the bare minimum, better storage and coverage for the equipment that they use because it's going to start to rot. Thanks to the fact that we live in New England.
Yep.
And I think capacity for storage for equipment rang true also for police They have a lot of signs that they store, and they have minimal space to do that. And I think that right now they're not super expanding, but there is potential that they will keep expanding, and they're going to run out of space.
I don't want a solution here, but we do have the light control buildings that nothing is happening
I'm
with.
glad you bring that up, because that'll come up later in my discussion
Okay,
about
all right.
grants.
Okay.
Also a thought that has been
Okay.
discussed.
I can throw it out there right now if you'd like, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
One of the grants, which I'll leave it, is what's known as underutilized properties grant,
Yes,
and I'm going to apply for Hawks Ave as a potential, so that maybe we can get funding to get those buildings secure, and in other words, get window, put them back to use.
Yeah.
Versus just sitting there.
Yeah.
We have some estimates that Charlie Baker has received, sort of, let's say, basic bare bones stuff.
mhm.
So that's one of the grants I'm going to chase this year. So maybe we can get money for that.
That would be great.
I will say too, with the facilities chapter, once it's been through review and it's ready for like a little bit more of an additional eye, I do think it'd be really important for Charlie to read it. Any department that I've talked to who's mentioned that their building has needed something had mentioned Charlie.
That's a good
It was a
sign
great sign.
That Charlie is engaged.
And
Yes.
Charlie is maybe doing more than his initial job description.
That would be,
So-
that's the understatement of the day.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think because so much of it might fall on him or require his guidance or assistance, it would be good for that to be passed.
Just from my own background, Charlie's position.
Charlie technically is our maintenance person, but he also oversaw the McQuon school tear down, like anything having to do with any of the buildings other than like cleaning the library and whatever. Charlie is the guy, and one of the things that the select board has discussed time and time again is making him the facilities director, because that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
But that, of course, would require more money, and people will lose their minds over it. So it's all about figuring out the right time for that
Sure.
discussion.
Thank you.
So, yeah. But we're also, Charlie is just a prince amongst men. He's just really just so willing to do so many things, and he's, a good networker and good at getting resources and getting things done cheaply. We're very lucky to have him. Charlie, if you're listening, it doesn't mean you're getting an increase. Okay, so then that's great. Did you guys have? Well, you're on the committee, so you don't have any.
I'm lucky enough to hear it usually twice on the
Yeah.
planning board. And
Like I think you're on a lot of boards actually.
yeah, a couple, yeah.
So what is once this is completed, is there like a time frame associated with it? Like how often do you refresh these?
Try to aim for every 10 years moving forward.
So at that point, there'll probably be a whole different crew of people here.
Sure.
That'll be
Yeah.
Who
dealing
will
with
have
that.
vastly different opinions.
Yep.
Yeah.
Understood.
Maybe you guys will be select board members by then.
Yeah.
That's the hope.
Yeah, so 10 years, and then we'll also, once we get to those final action items, we'll try to give some guidance on like what their timelines are. And we're also considering things that the town is interested in that span more than 10 years. And those will usually start with like the town should begin to consider for like moving into that 10 to the 20-year mark in case.
Did McQuon come? Is McQuon coming up in this conversation at all?
As a potential for us.
Is anybody talking about it at all? Like,
Yeah.
what are we doing with McQuon? What should we be doing with McQuon?
I don't think I haven't heard anything really. I don't know if you have.
I've heard a little bit. I think the library and council on aging would like to split into 2 buildings with the potential of
Oh
using
yes, they've
part
already marketed that
and
to
they're
us. Yeah.
starting a feasibility study for
Yeah.
that, and they're waiting for that library specific funding.
Yeah. So town meeting. One of the articles we have is using some ARPA money to do that study,
Mhm.
which is what the whatever the MLBA or whatever it is, where they get the library funding from, requires some sort of earnest money from the town. And so we're using ARPA money. If that passes at town meeting, then they'll have the money to do what they need to do for a feasibility study. The big question is, will town meeting appropriate once that's all the pixie dust is sprinkled and we have the plans, there is reimbursement, but we have to front the money for that, for the library, and then be reimbursed, and that's a large dollar amount to front and wait for reimbursement. And the reimbursement is only 50%. So there's a lot of hills to climb before this is going to happen. Last night at our select board meeting, I suggested that probably for McQuon, I think where we're at is we've got the plan. I don't want to say the plan because that's kind of like an overstatement. We've got the starting point, suggestive roadmap, whatever we want to call it, that Mr. DeFrayis has laid out there for McQuon. And I think we need to do a public forum and just have people come and just tell us what they envision there, what they envision. And because I don't know how I can meet with the McQuon reuse committee if we haven't sought any additional public feedback. So they all agreed. I didn't think anybody would disagree with that. I don't know how I'm going to effectuate that though. I came up with that idea and then I was like, I don't know who I'm going to get to facilitate this conversation. So we'll have to work on that. But
I can send you that plan.
So, all right. Anything else that we're hearing that is, like early stages, we should kind of be like, oh, this is a little different.
Not that I'm recalling right this second, but I have not analyzed all the comments from the survey.
How about light control? Did you hear anything about that?
Just the need for storage and the potential
Okay.
I think overall the conversation has been that we need a lot of things and we have a lot of land and we need to figure out which land is going to which things and which land we should not keep out of tax payment.
Okay.
Well, you gotta send me the stuff. I'm running out of time to write it.
I have a lot of stuff.
Just a question, was there a McQuon reuse committee formed, or
Yes.
were they, oh, there is one,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, we just formed it after the school was torn down.
Okay.
We just formed it. It's 3 citizens at large, several staff members who aren't voting, but, kind of like would participate in the conversations. Corinne Cafardo, she's kind of representing like library senior center since they clearly will have a role. And then I'm really hoping Parks and Fields, like somebody from Parks and Fields is part of that conversation, as well as Highway, because those are all of the entities that have been discussed as being in the mix of whatever we possibly will do there. There may be others, but those are the ones that, senior center, library, youth sports, highway, are kind of all.
Okay,
Yeah,
so would they be the ones to facilitate a forum or a survey or something like that?
No, so we did a survey years ago, but really it was before the school was torn down.
Mhm.
So I think it's time to either do a survey and a forum, or at the very least a forum. People seem to have a lot of opinions on Facebook, but I don't have people actually coming to our
forward,
meetings or talking to us or in any positive, mature adult way.
Exactly, yeah.
Sharing, the things that they would like to have done. So I thought I would do a forum. I've done it before for community preservation. When I chaired that committee, when we were doing our community preservation plan, we had like a forum. We broke out into different groups, So I think the way I'm kind of envisioning that would happen would have this visioning session, and would maybe have each of the constituent groups kind of break out and say, like, if we could wave a magic wand, what is it you would like to have there? Keep in mind there are other people who have needs, so the entire place can't be one big football field, or it can't be one big library, but
It is a large parcel though.
It is a
and
large
I think
parcel.
There's potential for like flex use and.
we really feel like it has the possibility to meet a lot of different groups' needs.
Right.
And one thing that we really are clear about as a board is we do not want to sell that piece of property.
Mhm.
And people are like, oh, you could, that would, you could get the money. But that's a very short sighted vision, because yes, we would get money, but we would never again have an opportunity to have a blank footprint smack dab next to our library, our senior center, and a school. And once we lose control over that piece of property, we lose control.
Mhm.
And it's such an important piece of property. We don't really have a center, but it's kind of the
Yeah,
epicenter.
absolutely.
So anyway, that's that.
That's my plan.
Oh, I love it.
So did you want to quickly,
So what it does is, there's 17 acres of land.
Mhm.
We relocate all the ball fields that are adjacent to the highway department. So all that athletic fields would be moved to this site. We give land to the senior center and the library to allow them for expansion. And now this allows the highway department to put up a new building on the same site and allows everyone to stay put while they're doing renovations or additions. So that's my thought. It solves the highway problem, it solves the library problem, and it solves the senior center problem.
and we know that we can use community preservation money for the creation of the fields and a lot of that. And then senior center, there's not a lot of grant money there. The library, they've got some, sources of potential grant money. The big lift for the town is gonna be funding the highway piece of it. That's gonna be the big lift. But it can be done in stages. It doesn't have to be all at once, and,
Am I allowed to react to this here, or should I wait?
Sure. Okay.
Is the dark outline around the library the expansion?
Yes.
Do you know what the square footage is in comparison to where the library is currently?
Yes. So this is doubling their size, which was the original. They were going from about 8,000 to 16,000, so that would represent 16,000. Now they're talking about 22,000. So I have to go back and actually revise this plan.
Okay.
The senior center, this is just doubling in size. This was just hey, here's what you have, here's what you potentially could do with what you have.
Yeah.
And so it was created as a talking point.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was done for, and this is what the highway would look like. So once the ball fields were moved, they would have the ability to put a new building up front. There's a potential for a second building. All this is materials, salt storage,
Mhm.
and they would be able to stay in the same building while this is being constructed. Once it's done, either these buildings get renovated or torn down or used for storage. We also reclaim the old police station, which we then could reuse as office space or meeting space or something like that.
only because the sports guys will have space over in the new
Correct,
sports.
right.
center.
Mhm.
I just didn't want you to panic about all the
Yeah.
football.
So the sports guys would get a brand new building here. Again, this is just, the size is just for the sake of talking point,
Yeah.
which they could have offices, concession stands, bathrooms.
Hanson already has 3 baseball fields.
On the other side, there are.
6 total baseball fields in the town, baseball, softball.
So there's 3 across the way, plus there was a skate park, a basketball court. So this would be the skate park, the basketball court, the playground, which is on the site right now, would just get moved closer to the road. And those are 3 ball fields, and then you see a potential practice field, and then there's still this that remains. So,
So, he just whipped that up, just one day,
It's the engineer brain.
just.
And if I'm not mistaken, the playground could probably stay where it's at. right
well,
on the
the equipment would be reused, and the
Yeah.
playground would be pushed closer to the
push
road
roads, okay.
for just the fact that it's not way out in the woods somewhere.
Mhm.
It's kind of creepy where
Which is
it is
kinda-
right
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
It
I've
is.
heard that.
Yeah.
So,
I'm not
So
gonna
if
lie, I'm always looking around like.
so if you'd like, I can send you this,
Yeah.
Rhiannon, or
Yeah, no, that would be good, for sure. Has
Yeah.
the library seen this yet?
Oh, yeah. Corinne Capardo has been very much a part of all of these, she's probably seen it as many times as I have.
Okay.
And so has Mary Collins from the Senior Center, so, yeah. They've been in the preliminary conversations about this, and, they're very much stakeholders. We don't know where it's gonna go, but we know
Yeah.
that they have needs and this can meet them, so.
and again, it was a case of, as when I presented this initially, was just, this is discussion.
Mhm.
I just want to show you what you have
No pitchforks, just
and
discussion.
what you can do with what you have.
It's a start, it's a,
It's a starting point, and
Conversation starter.
and it solves problems.
I think the most important thing that it does, like with your imagery though, is it shows that that land is so huge that
Yes.
it's covering multiple things. It's not just a one person and everybody can get a little bit of what they need.
no, and we
It's
want
the whole-
to encourage people, like, reimagine this.
Yeah,
Like, yes, it used to be a school, and I know people have beloved memories, but let's reimagine what it could be. So,
and I think it meets a lot of the community encompassing needs that the town
Yes.
is looking for.
it does.
You know, by moving the ball fields to that site, you give Highway the ability to remain in the center of town. You're also removing the ball fields from a busy street, Route
Mhm.
58, to a side
The
street,
Scary Street, yeah.
you know, which now on the side street, it's a much safer space.
And all of that is fantastic. Also, the parking at the library and the senior center is for the birds.
Yeah.
I don't know what, the original design that Tony ran across had the parking all around the building, and it was a circular driveway, which 100% made sense. I can't even tell you how many times I've gotten jammed in a corner of that library parking lot, and I'm like, "Rrr, rrr, rrr." You know, and you're afraid you might, because, you know, the seniors there, so you've got to really be careful, you
Because
know?
of the little children.
Yeah,
I was there on
yeah.
a very child-centric day.
Yeah.
And you've got little ones jumping in and out of
Yeah.
SUVs.
Yep.
And it's tight.
It
hard
is,
to see.
it's very tight, especially for those that are driving challenged like myself.
Well,
so-
we'll limit the curbs then.
Yes, exactly. Anything else that we want to talk to Rhiannon about?
I had a question. You
Oh,
said there
yeah.
were, I think, 3 overall themes.
3 chapters that
Facilities,
have,
or 3 chapters.
that have been out so far.
Facilities.
Facilities, land use, and intro were the first ones that the steering committee
Okay,
has
okay.
received. Economic development has its own chapter,
Okay.
which is part of why I'm here is I just want to, once the steering committee reads that chapter, it will definitely go here. But it is a little easier if you tell me ahead of time some of the things that would be helpful to go in there, so that way it doesn't seem off reach.
So what do you want to know from us?
I guess what are your overarching goals as a committee for the town? And then is
Yep, so we do, so Main Street, we
Mhm.
want to be developed into mixed use.
Yeah.
And for some reason, there seemed to be a disconnect between your brethren at OCPC who visited the Hanson Business Network and thought that that wasn't what the business network was saying, but we do, the Hanson Business Network, which I had as well, definitely wants to see mixed use along there. One of the things that we struggle with is the town sewer. We don't have that,
Right.
and I'm not sure that we want to have that. We don't have the money for that, and I think people freak out thinking it's gonna end up becoming crazy overdeveloped with town sewer. And I think that's what I think it was Nick from OCPC, was sort of, I think trying to low-key sell to the Hanson Business Network, and they were not picking up what he was putting down on that. He was saying he had done something similar in East Bridgewater, and it wasn't. So I would say managed growth along Main Street, mixed use, that's what we've talked about. And then we've also talked about up on Liberty, Liberty Street, the zones essentially that are already business zones, we want to try to figure out what can we do to help. Sort of like somebody had come to us with some zoning concerns along Liberty Street saying, you've got some funky zone stuff going on here where people buy a piece of property thinking they can put a business there, but it turns out they can only use the front portion for the business, in the back they can't. So we kind of want to take a look at some of those things. I don't know, guys, what else?
The possible boardwalk along
Yes.
Burridge, connectivity to the High Street Park. It's kind of in our
So Tony's been working on, he may have already told you this, but along Main Street, right near the railroad track, we want to try to, we've got a company that's doing some preliminary studies on how could we connect Main Street to Burridge, which to us is, we really feel like Burridge is something that makes us unique. It's an asset that we have, and we really want to try to optimize using that as something to attract people to come to town. Then another thing we've talked about is along that same line, connectivity of Main Street to High Street, where we've got the, well, now it's a blank footprint, but it soon will be some type of a park, the High Street Park. I'm sure you've already heard about that from Mr. Clemens and others. So we want to try to get connectivity along Main Street up to High Street. Our ultimate goal would be Main Street up to High Street down to Liberty. So we've got to, like, I can't even say walk before we crawl. We've got to, like, I don't know what, shuffle before we do anything. So we've got that. Then we also want to try to find ways to help small businesses flourish in town by either, if we've got tip programs, if they're interested in revitalizing, buildings, maybe coming up with some tax incentive planning for them. We did have an early adopter of that, but it turns out that individual had not paid their taxes. So we withdrew that article that we had on the town meeting warrant and said, we'll have to do this with a better candidate the next time. And then one of the things that we really are bullish about is we have, Mr. DeFreitas has put together a list of town-owned properties.
Yes.
And we have several, but one of particular note is right near our industrial park. And we are very interested in doing some permitting on that. Historically, the town, when we've had pieces of land that have gone up for sale, we just sell them. We don't do any permitting in advance, and we're getting basically taken out to the woodshed by the developers who buy it, do very minimal work to get the permits in place through conservation, planning, blah, 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 and then turn around, flip it, sell it for a profit, and the town could have made that money if we'd just taken those extra steps. So we want to take the extra steps on that piece of property, and then we want to work with, and I always screw this up, Metro Chamber,
Metro South Chamber.
thank you, Metro South Chamber of Commerce and South Shore Chamber of Commerce, and see if we can attract some type of business there. We're, and we're in the process of trying to refresh a study that we did back in, serendipitously enough, 2019, before the entire world changed, and it had demographics about how many people commuted and what average household income and all of that stuff. But we want to find out, how did traffic patterns change? Who is at home versus who isn't? And I think you had talked to OCPC about whether they might be able to do a refresh. And
it was about the same price as what Mr. Mahidi was saying.
So I don't know where we are with that, actually.
He was supposed to get back in touch with us about, he was going to
Give us a cheaper price.
Sharpen his pencil,
yes.
and I never heard from him again, but I'll reach out to him.
Okay.
As far as the site that the chair is speaking of, we have a grant, and we have a grant for that site, and so the VHB is actually the engineer, the consultant, so they're going to begin looking at getting the wetlands flagged, soils, they're going to put together a preliminary plan to determine what the yield will be out of that property.
Did you see the town-owned land map we had at the last public meeting?
At the one at Camp Kawani?
Yeah.
Briefly, briefly.
I was wondering how well the Mass GIS lined up with your master list, but just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I'd have to look.
Okay.
So that's a major focus for us.
So we're in process with that site at this point.
Yep.
Got it. Can I ask to backtrack for a second? Where was I? I asked to backtrack and I'm not remember where I want to go with this. You mentioned helping small businesses flourish and the zoning being like split in the middle of the parcel line. Are there any bylaws that have come into conversation that revolve around small business that have been of concern in this committee?
So that would have to go to planning for the bylaw change, and I don't know if you guys have really talked about that. I guess I could talk to the chair of planning, or we could talk to our brethren who are on planning and perhaps have them bring it back.
I
Well-
put as like an initial goal for land use that the town should consider doing a full bylaw review to begin with. Which
Well, let's put it this way. I had brought up to the Economic Development Committee about expanding the existing business zones.
Yeah.
Not crazy, but just let's go out some more.
I remember the
And,
stuff.
yeah, and the planning board. And they really, at this point, the planning board has tabled it because there really wasn't a lot of interest in doing so at this time. So, but I think that
Is that true? You guys torpedoed it?
So we had talks of a couple of areas of town that there's already businesses kind of grandfathered in as well.
Right, what, so it was on the meeting for a while, but it didn't catch fire. So it's sort of, I think it's a fair
Yeah.
statement to say it's been tabled.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll
Yeah,
reach out to the
But
chair.
I think it's one of those things with, especially
Yeah.
looking now at the two things. One, the fact of you going for an override. You need to bring in more business.
Yeah.
Two, what's happening is you're having residential zones that have businesses in them.
Mm.
And three, we're getting people that are coming in and they're, for instance, there was a gentleman this week who called and he bought a property in Hanson. And he has a landscaping business. And it's in a residential area. And now he wants to come in, he wants to know what he has to do because he wants to change the zoning because he wants to run his business out of his house.
In the middle of a cul-de-sac or something?
Not in the middle of a cul-de-sac.
Oh, right.
It's a main road, but
Yeah,
still,
no,
but in a main road, but still in a residential area.
Okay,
And so I told him, I said, well, the people you have to go see is the zoning board of appeals to look at a special permit because maybe, and I air quote maybe, you can consider it. They'll consider it a home office type of situation, but maybe not. Because you're talking
he's got
about-
a lot of equipment.
If you're talking about landscaping business,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So there you go. Now, if he does go to ZBA, and the ZBA says, "Listen, that's not something that really falls on. It's not something we can really give a special permit for." One of two things is going to happen: either A, he's going to run his business out of that house no matter what until there's complaints, and then the town has to do something to react to it, or he'll go find somewhere else in a different town to try and, he came from Duxbury because he said it was too expensive in Duxbury. So I think we're seeing a lot of that actually.
Yeah.
People from Duxbury where it's too expensive to be in Duxbury, but it's cheaper for me to be in Hanson, but they're probably carrying a lot of income. So you're getting that.
Yeah.
You're probably getting, let's say, a little bit
I
of
feel
that
like I
push.
should be insulted, but I'm not sure. I really.
Well, I think
Yeah.
you're starting to get that push.
Yeah.
Gentrification is a good word you could say to some degree with Hanson because you're getting folks that are coming out of these what would be considered more affluent communities moving into Hanson and saying, okay, well, I can afford to live there,
Yeah.
versus living in Duxbury, and what was the whole school thing where Hanson was considered more affluent than Whitman,
Yes. Don't trigger us, Tony. Okay, so and then so we have a Hanson Business Network, which I started years ago, and then I stepped back, but then the person that I handed it to left town, so I ended up having to take it back over again. I have to say it's coming back stronger than it was before, which is a very weird but happy story. And they are really focused on Hanson Day. So we have a day once a year, it's Hanson Day. It originally was the Economic Development Committee that was like, let's do it to showcase businesses, but then it ended up sort of blossoming into all things Hanson, which is totally fine, it's wonderful, it's great, but it lost its way in terms of what our primary focus was. So the Hanson Business Network, at their last meeting in early March, talked about doing what I think will be very interesting, which is in the week or 2 weeks leading up to Hanson Day, which we should talk at some point about when we're going to have that, probably in September, I think. That timing seemed to work well, the third week in September or whatever. In the 2 weeks leading up to Hanson Day, they want to have an event, they want to have sort of like an ongoing thing where people will visit all kinds of participating businesses, get raffle tickets, and then at Hanson Day, people will also have a presence. So, because we may have people that don't have brick and mortar stores, so at least, so they can be at Hanson Day with their little tables, and give raffle tickets to people too. Hanson Day is free to attend, so, and then there'll be a drawing of some sort of a basket or several baskets that will be comprised of things that all of those, businesses have, contributed. So, the details have not thoroughly been worked out, but we have two individuals who are working out those details. We also have changed it up a bit this year. We were meeting originally at Town Hall years ago, then we started a meeting at Coletta Cutler, just because Becky Coletta would let us meet there, and it was free, and she let other groups meet there. But she has since sold the building, and serendipitously, we sort of came up with this idea, let's visit each other's businesses. So we've been going to different people's businesses in town to have these meetings. So the next meeting I'm super excited about, because I've wanted to go there, but I've been intimidated about going, is Tech Hi-Fi, which is a business in Hanson, and he actually had come to talk to us. So he's become engaged in the Hanson Business Network, and we're going to meet there. And I want to say it's next Wednesday. That we're meeting there, and we'll just talk about Hanson Day. They're also talking about a health and wellness fair, because it turns out we have a ton of businesses that do health and wellness business. Nails, Reiki, whatever, fill in the blanks, eyebrows, the hairdressing, and it's mostly gals that own these businesses. There's been this huge synergy between these ladies. They're like, oh my God, I can turn my customers onto you, and you can turn my customers, and we can do stuff together. And then that sort of like came up with this idea of like, well, why don't we do like a health and wellness, so that we can showcase the businesses that are in Hanson that people may not even know are here. We've got Pilates, we've got all kinds of stuff. One woman does like Reiki, massage, and I didn't even know about her until she joined the Hanson Business Network. So we've got that in the works. They are also working on a directory of businesses. It's tricky because the town cannot promote businesses, but we certainly can put a link to the Hanson Business Network page, which will be a list of businesses that are in town. There's no cost to be part of Hanson Business Network. It's just like, hey, we're there to network, to support each other, to help each other out. We don't make anybody refer or any of that creepy stuff that some of these groups do. We don't do any of that. It's like, just show up, have some ideas, be collaborative, be supportive, and you'll be welcome. So we're doing that. And the thought is, once that directory is done, not only will we put a link on the town website, we will have a QR code that we're going to see if we can put at the library, the post office around town, where, hey, thinking about doing, want to shop small? Click on the QR code, and it will be the whole list of businesses that are in Hanson that are small that have signed up. So we've got a lot of different little things going on there, so that's the growing the small. It's not so much this committee that's doing that, but we do want to have that connectivity, and just by virtue of the fact that I'm part of it, we do have the connectivity. So I don't know if that answered your questions, but
Do you have a copy of our business guide as well? Have you seen that?
Great point.
Our Hanson business guide that's on our webpage.
Our start a business in Hanson.
I don't think I have.
Okay,
But-
I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
Because
I-
we did it like in 2022.
I didn't draft the economic chapter, so I just might not have crossed my
Okay.
path.
Also, we are trying to get information out about the fact that we have an economic development committee.
Yeah.
If you even have an idea, come and talk to us, because we've had a real estate agent come and talk to us about the zoning. We had the Tech Hi-Fi guy come and say, how come there's not a Hanson Business Network? And I was like, oh dear God, I'm gonna have to Zoom this and do that. So we've tried to be responsive to the people that have come, and people have had ideas, and it's like, so we welcome people. So for better or worse, Kevin and I did a PSA on cable, and it's our intention to do additional little PSAs just to say, like, come, give us ideas. We're just making this stuff up on the fly. We're trying to get things going, but we're open to ideas. So that's that's kind of, another thing. We just wanna, like, let people know that we're here. So if you've got an idea or you wanna locate in Hanson, like, come and talk to us about it, we'll see what we can do. Another thing that we would love to do, but we haven't really probed, is to streamline permitting for people that wanna locate businesses here. One thing that I've heard time and time again through the Hanson Business Network is, it's a pain in the neck to locate in Hanson. The signage bylaws, the da-da-da-da, like fill in the blanks. Joe Campbell gets upset when I say the signage bylaws, but that is true that I do hear that feedback. But he says that it's been simplified, and it I believe it has, but I still get that feedback. Those are some of the, like, I don't know if we could possibly at some point in the future have like, and not even just for businesses, for anybody, like a group that gets together and says, all right, we've got this big project or this business that wants to locate in town. Go. All right, Tony, what's your thought for planning? Conservation, what are your initial thoughts? Like, again, not binding, but just like obviously the respective boards and committees need to, to chime in and vote and do all that good stuff. But at least give people an idea of, oh, this is a pretty tall hill to climb, or, you know what, you're kind of in a zone where that probably will be okay. We've got a few, maybe you gotta go to ZBA, but, so, anyway, I've talked enough. What do you guys have to say?
I just want to add, I also like the idea of some of these so-called summertime businesses that other towns have that we don't have, like food truck rodeos, farmers markets, maybe streamlining that so that, like, if somebody wanted to have a farmers market 3 weeks from now.
It'd be, and the green right next, the green here would be a perfect place for
Anne
it.
Ray
Yeah.
really wants to get a farmer's market
Exactly,
going.
yeah.
She really does.
I know you're separate towns, but I
Yeah.
really think we need like a quadrant master plan of all the towns, because I have a lot of the same conversations. If we could just divvy up
Yeah.
everybody's bills, it'd be cheaper for everybody. Okay, got it. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut off your train.
I will
I
bring
mean,
that up at the
yeah,
Hanson
exactly.
Business Network because, but like, Ann sells the honey and the
Yep.
soap and stuff. And we've got a lot of people, like Nicole Riley sells a lot, there's people all over town that
Exactly,
have,
So, I was almost waiting for the High Street Park to come about
Yes.
to use that space for food truck rodeos and
Yep.
pop-up. I proposed the idea at one point or another, pop-up businesses. I know like Union Point does it sometimes in the
Yes.
summertime.
Yep.
I don't know what would be required.
Yeah.
If we could get containers down there that people could rent space. I've seen it in Boston even.
yeah.
These small, I don't even know what they are, 100 square foot containers that people use and they make money off of it.
Yeah, the Weymouth one was
Yeah.
was so insane because they'd have those storage containers and like from week to week some other business would like totally populate
I think it would be a great idea.
Yeah.
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 And like Laura had said, there are businesses that do these farmers markets, so they might not be on our list of businesses, but they're there.
Yeah.
And I think they'd love to be a part of.
Well, also when you
You
think
know,
about like
this
the
sort of-
current day farmers market too, right? Usually any farmers market you go to, half of it's artisan.
Yes.
Like you
Yeah.
said, people who don't have storefronts but
Yeah.
are making products. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we know that those exist. We know that. And like there's a business in town, she's been super supportive of all kinds of, she's a wonderful little resource, the Cozy Cottage. And so she has got all kinds of artisans that come to her and she sells their product. And she did this in Somerville before she relocated here. So she's got a lot of experience in networking and promoting artisans and she's quite a lady. So she's one that if we did decide to do the farmer's market, I'd be like, hey, do any of your artisans want to participate? Do you want to sell stuff on their behalf? Like even that Hanson Historical Society sale, that did you go to that last year? They had like that I don't know what they call it, like a market or whatever, but it was all kinds of artisans, people selling all their goods, like, and it's off the hook how many people came. And they were paying like I think $100 a table or something like that. You have to bring your own table and your own tent and everything, but they give you a little space. And
So-
that was the first time that they ever did it, and it was very popular, and they're gonna bring it back again.
Yeah, so almost like you see like flea markets
Yes.
sometimes, or sometimes churches do it.
Yep.
Where they have the table, and
Yeah.
almost like a yard sale mentality.
And the alternative site we have is the High Street Park location.
Right.
There is a large area there that is a field. Now, if you can mow the grass without anyone getting upset, it'd be a perfect spot because that's what it's supposed to be dedicated to as part of the park is a field for activities.
Yeah, they have, actually, they even marked, because last night we looked at it, like
Mhm.
farmer's market. It was
Yes.
kind of
So
been,
there's
Is, I'm trying to figure out how to word this appropriately. Is the Parks Department active in what happens activity-wise at the park, or are they just like,
we don't have a park, we have parks and fields,
sorry, Parks and Fields,
which
yeah.
is really, it should really be called youth sports.
Youth sport, okay.
Because, we've never really had a park up until now.
Mhm.
Per se. I mean, there's little ones all over town, but I mean, this is the first park. So we're really kind of having like an existential crisis right now. And I'm exaggerating, but not really. Where we've got parks and fields, which is really like maintenance of the fields for the
Maintenance is
sports,
what
yeah.
I'm trying to get,
But that's all volunteer, so not
Mhm.
super sustainable for, like going forward. But we don't have a DPW, we've got the highway, so we've got literally like four guys
Yeah.
for our whole highway. So to say to them, hey guys, on top of, like doing all the stuff that, you can barely get done because you're only 4-person department, we're gonna just throw this into the mix too. So we haven't been able to do that. And now with this High Street Park, literally going to be a park, hopefully as low maintenance as possible, that's part of the planning process. We're gonna need to have some entity, so the board talked about like, well, should we have like a recreation committee, which we used to have, we called it recreation, but they really only did stuff up at Camp Kawani. So we renamed them the Camp Kawani Commission, so that people didn't keep asking them about town-wide activities.
Yeah.
And we're creating a recreation commission, but this is all new, and the thought process will be the recreation commission, newly formed, new identity, new objective, will be in charge of what happens up at the High Street Park, and potentially like, McQuon and other places, but not in charge of the fields for playing,
Mhm.
just in charge of like activities townwide.
So I am writing the open space and recreation chapter. I'll be the one drafting it personally. I think a good opportunity here would be to expand it, to think of it as an open space and recreation committee that is not just dedicated to the renewal periods of time for the open space and rec plans, but the continuation and follow through.
And there's been some discussion by Joe Weeks, who's on the High Street Park Committee and is a fellow select board member, and Mr. Clemens, that have touched upon it, but we just haven't been able to conceptualize how to marry those and have a clear mission and actually effectuate something.
Yeah.
So any feedback would be welcome on that.
I will actually say maybe looking to other towns, and they don't have it as open space and recreation, they just have recreation, but East Bridgewater has a really active recreation committee. I would be happy to put you guys in contact
That
with
would
each
be
other.
great,
That
yeah.
would be of interest. moving
That would be
forward.
of interest because I'm not ashamed to copy what somebody else
No,
has
it's
done.
also just like
and
inspo,
just-
right?
yeah,
Like
and-
just figuring
yeah.
out what is working and what is
Yes.
not and how it
Yeah.
works for Hanson.
I'd like to know what their rules of engagement are, or do they have a budget, how do they come up with what they're gonna do, all of those things.
Yeah, let me reach back out. I just saw them recently, so.
No, you said you had to be somewhere.
I
6:30.
do have to head out at
Mr.
6:30.
Okay, Mr. Ernst, I think had some questions or comments.
No, I think
Oh.
you pretty much hit on everything. The only thing that we didn't touch on was one of our goals too has been to connect with our legislators,
Yes,
to see how we can partner with them. as
but
well.
we're down one legislator,
Yeah.
until November.
And we've
Yeah.
talked about getting out as a committee into the business community to talk to folks about
Mhm.
business in Hanson and
That is one thing that, have you had any experience with any of the towns, like having like a, I don't know, business symposium, or for lack of a better word, like a like, what can we do for you? Come and talk to us. What are your concerns? I mean, I realize this could be like inviting, the villagers with pitchforks, but on the other hand, people might just have ideas that we haven't even thought about. Have you had anybody do anything like that?
I'd say there's a general lack of that throughout the region, unfortunately. I think the idea though of like getting in contact with some of the more larger business commissions would be great. Just in terms of like what their outreach and networking is and how they can help or be like almost like a facilitator, right?
They
Like a
said that
bridge
they would come and
maybe.
talk to us. They,
Well,
Tony
the-
did reach.
Next month, we've set it up with Peter Foreman from the South Shore
It just got pushed.
Chamber of Commerce
Yeah.
Mhm.
to come on next month's meeting and sit down and talk with the board, the committee. So we've set that up.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, we don't know what we don't know. This is also new that it's just sort of, but what we do know is we need to attract businesses here.
Yeah, I also do wonder maybe like Old Colony Planning Council holds a SEDS committee meeting, so it's only once a quarter, but it's economic development across the region. There's a bunch of partners, but maybe them hosting something that's even more open, something that allows businesses across town lines might be helpful too, in terms of strategizing. Yeah, I'll take a look though, and I can ask, Don's been in the economic development field his whole career, and he's towards the end of it, so he's got a lot more years under his belt than I do, so I can ask for any input that he might have.
That would be awesome. Yeah, thanks.
Happy to do that. And I'll also, before I sneak out, I'll pass everybody my card, so that way, if there's something, maybe off the record that's better said or anything else, please feel free.
All right.
to reach out. Anything I missed, Tony? that I
Anything
should have
else?
shared?
No, I
Okay.
think we got it.
Thanks for coming,
Yeah.
and thanks for the therapy
Thanks.
session.
Absolutely.
Send us your bill. It's always good to talk to somebody who's interested in what we're doing.
Yes, and I'm always interested in writing plans that are going to get used and not have everybody just upset about them. So try to do as much outreach as I can. I'm
Thank you.
assuming you have
Oh,
my
yeah,
contact like
yeah, thank you.
1,500 times. So. All right. Well, thank you guys for having
All right,
me.
nice to meet you,
Appreciate it.
and hope we see you again.
Yeah, and I will make sure over the next month. I don't know the exact date. I'll have the economic rough draft finished up, but I'll read through what's done, take these notes into account, and get that out to you guys as soon as I can.
Awesome,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Great, and OCPC will be there the 25th. I will not.
Okay.
Unless you want to change your planning board meetings for my convenience to not Mondays for the next month. But with that exception.
Okay,
All right,
no worries.
everybody.
All right,
Have a
thanks.
good
Thank you.
night.
That's great, thank you, Tony, for including us in on that. Discuss Economic Development Committee draft outline.
So that was homework of yours. Did you do it?
Yes. Um,
I think, let's put it this way, I think you touched on stuff, but I had given you a list of the draft outline, and I didn't know if anyone had actually read through it. And
I did, but I'm wondering, could we possibly do this the next meeting?
yeah, it's
Okay.
yeah,
And
it's an ongoing
Okay.
thing.
Yeah,
you know
it's a
what I mean?
living, breathing
Yeah.
Yeah,
document,
yeah.
okay. And then, for our goals,
I mean, the goals. I mean, did you touch on them tonight? Really?
I think
You know
we
what I mean?
did.
So,
I
so
mean,
what
I don't know about you guys, but for me, my number one goal this year is to do something about that industrial park place. Do you guys agree?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So the good thing there is there will be hard evidence coming within the next few months with the grant, because VHB, that's what they're going to do. They're going to survey the property. They're going to establish the wetland line. We're going to have tangible, work product, so we can see what you have, what is available.
And then my number two goal would be to connect with one of the chambers of commerce and start, see what they can help us with, to what things we're not even thinking about that we should be doing or thinking about, I feel like we need that sanity check from a third party that does this that does nothing but economic development and is networking. Like what can we do? Like what have
Yeah.
they seen other folks do that's working?
By the end of the grant, we'll know exactly what that property will yield, whether it's a site for a single business or industry, or whether it can be created into multiple location, like a business park or a second
Or
industrial
like
park.
bays for, like
Right.
industrial
I
office.
mean, the one thing, if
Yeah.
you see the industrial park right now, the buildings that are there have all been condoed out, so there's
Yeah.
all individual businesses. And so this grant is going to give us the ability to see that on paper. What can we get out of it,
Okay,
you know? So, like I said, by the end of it, and I actually have to reach out to VHB and see where they're at. But that's what you'll have in hand.
that sounds awesome. What other goals do you guys, like, what burning things have you talked about that we think we should do? Do you think it should be us that initiate a farmer's market? It kind of makes sense to me, but I'm just not sure if we've got, like, it's just the three of us, and I'm not sure we've got the bandwidth to take on that organization. Or is it a case of us throwing out, like, hey, is anybody interested in working with the Economic Development Committee to start a farmer's market?
I agree with you. I think it should. I think we should keep it kind of as a runner goal, but I see the issue and the problem there.
Like, I'd be willing to do one. I don't mind
Yeah.
doing one day, but I cannot.
Yeah.
And I very seldom say no, but I'm starting to learn.
So,
I'm starting to learn
yeah.
how to do that.
Because most towns around us do, every single, at least once a week
like a
for the whole
Saturday.
summer. So
Yeah.
at least
Yeah.
8 weeks.
Yeah.
And then piggybacking off of that, something that I enjoy going to in other towns that we don't have yet is some of those like South Shore music circuses, events like that. That we really don't have the space for yet until the High Street Park's done.
Yep.
Actually, that's not true.
Not true? Yeah.
My understanding is that the green, and I'm sure those that have,
Yeah. The town
The-
greenhouse works.
the town green was used for music, and that the area that's along the side of the building was the stage.
That's true.
And so you do have,
Yeah, true.
obviously, the issue around town hall is parking.
Yes.
If you have a large crowd but you do have a potential venue there
Mhm.
as a starting point.
True.
Um,
So
and,
something
and, and if I could just, the farmer's market, one thing I can do, or I can have Kim do, is reach out to some surrounding towns that have farmers markets and maybe get, hey, how did you start it? Is there somebody you talk to? And just get some information.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're gonna have it on town property, probably we're gonna need some liability waiver signed. I don't know what we do about, do you charge people? The town really can't do that, so I'm not sure if you almost have to have like a Friends of the Farmers
Yeah.
Market type of thing. I don't know, I'm not sure. Years ago, there was a farmer's market, it was at Thomas Mill.
Huh.
Yeah,
That's right.
but it became so sporadic, like people weren't consistent in their ability to be there,
Mhm.
and the people that were running it just felt like they were chasing people all the time. Like, the minute the weather looked like it wasn't going to be good, everybody bailed, and then it was it just became like unsustainable for those people to run it.
The park site, like I said before, you could start that down there now. I mean, it needs a
I
little.
agree.
It needs a little sprucing up, and you need to cut the grass, and it needs a little sprucing up down there.
Yeah.
But if you did that, you have enough parking areas that you're not going to have to really worry about people damaging anything because it's not a park yet. But you could have that field, in essence, used to sort of maybe even get interest in the park.
Yeah.
I mentioned that. Ian Rain seems to think visibility is the key for the farmer's market. Like, you really have to have it somewhere you're driving by and you're like, oh, you know what, I'm going to stop by and see if they've got honey or eggs or whatever.
Or you have to sell it.
Yeah.
Really, really. So, yeah, I can understand what you're saying.
Well, sometimes the attraction for me to go to a farmer's market is that there's usually food trucks. there, too.
Exactly.
So,
This is a recurring theme with you,
it's,
Kevin.
so not only is the farmer's market, you get the food trucks there. Maybe there's a food truck you've never tried before.
You know
so
what?
then you're like,
I'm sorry.
I'll stop. Yeah.
We're missing the obvious.
McQuan.
Until McQuan gets
Yeah.
built upon,
Oh,
McQuan's the
that's
perfect site for it.
That is.
It really is.
You could, because you have parking
Okay.
and you have the field
And you have visibility.
and you have visibility. So all you need to do with the field out there, I mean, they loam and seeded,
Yeah.
needs a little sprucing up, but
Yep.
you have the site already. So McQuan would be a perfect space for right now for the farmer's market
And they actually did use that site for
or a food truck rodeo.
touch a truck
Yep.
type event.
Yep.
And then usually people have food at that.
Yeah, and you
Yeah.
have a playground.
Yeah.
And you have parking for 90-some cars.
Yeah, so maybe we should keep that as a goal.
I'll toss it by like I said, Ian Rain and I just casually had talked about it last night.
Yeah.
And she's very bullish about it because she's going to different towns to, to sell her
Yeah.
stuff. And I know, like I can think of off the top of my head about 6 or 7 people in town
Mhm.
that go to other farmers markets.
Oh, yeah.
There's one at, what's the tractor?
Tractor supply.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
seen it there,
A lot of the
Yeah.
homesteaders,
Yeah.
will go, there's like
and
a
there's
homestead.
Even I forget the dog adoption. And they always have their dogs roaming around.
Yes, Buddy and Friends.
Buddy and Friends.
Yeah,
Thank you,
yeah.
So yeah, maybe we should just keep it on for now.
Like I
Okay,
said,
well,
I can get information.
Yeah, we can
I'll-
get some.
I'll try and get you some
yeah.
kind of information
Okay.
so that you know what other towns are doing.
All right, that would be good. Any other goal that we were thinking? I mean, it's not speak now, forever hold your peace, but it does help Tony to figure
Yeah,
out what his
because what-
focus is on.
Right, because when Kim does the minutes, I can have her, okay, listen for those things, and just let's create an outline. It's just it's a loose idea, trying to give you a direction.
Now, what about the zoning? How can you guys take that back and talk to planning about it? I'll
Yeah, I
call
can
the
bring
chair
it
of
in,
planning, but
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, is there anything that we can do zoning wise that's not gonna change the way the town looks in any dramatic way, but just might signal like, hey,
I'm
we're
just-
business friendly?
My goal was, hey, if we take the existing business zones we have and expand them, and when I say again expand them, let's say expand them along, for instance, Main Street. Let's go out another 500 feet to include those properties in the business zone, just to give people that want to locate in town a place that they could maybe go locate in town. You know what I mean? I'm not looking to create Route 1 or
No,
Hanover or any of that. It's just when you look at what's happening with Hanson with the financial issues, bringing that business in is a key thing. But if we do not have a place for them to go, then they're going to go elsewhere, or you're getting folks again that are running a business in a residential zone, and maybe they're going to get a permit, maybe they're not, and they'll become a problem. Now that
Yeah, we don't wanna
with zoning
cause people,
enforcement,
because we have failed to plan, we don't want unwittingly to in a way set people up to violate the regulations,
Mm-hmm.
which, people are gonna do. So how would you guys be willing to bring that back to planning and say the Economic Development Committee had asked if you would reconsider?
I can mention. Well,
Yeah.
Kevin can mention
I
it as on Monday night.
Okay,
Yeah, that sounds like.
I mean, I wasn't trying to throw anyone under the bus,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying that we had it on the agenda for a while,
We
and
did, yeah.
it really didn't catch fire.
I
So
will call Mr. Campbell about expanding.
Yeah, I know we have if I may bring up one more thing.
Yeah.
I know there's an article at town meeting about right to farm. Is that, depending on what happens with that, would that give, if it does pass, would that give people the right to sell farm products off their
No,
own
really,
property or not?
it's funny because we talked about this last night. So we don't remember who it was, but there was somebody in our audience that was like, be careful about the right to farm. There's
Yeah.
pitfalls for the unwary about passing this
Mhm.
bylaw. And I said to Ann, no, I don't remember who the heck it was. And Ann and Joe both remembered that
Mhm.
somebody said this to us, but we couldn't remember what the pitfalls were. Just this impending sense of doom. And so we had asked that it be forwarded to planning to have you
Yeah.
guys just chime in, and if you had some thoughts, that get back to us and let us know.
I think you should hold and do a little more research and craft something
Thoughtful.
that works,
Okay.
and look at other towns. As the planner, that's me speaking as the planner. Before you jump into it, let's at least research what other towns have done and what their regulations are regarding right to farm. Because the issue doesn't become the folks that are going to follow the rules. It's the problem becomes the folks that aren't going to follow the rules. And I've seen in other communities where, and I've mentioned before, I've seen in other communities that had a right to farm where there's a house here where this wall is, and there's a house there where that wall is, and someone has a horse corral in between.
It might have been you that was warning us. We were trying to
And-
think of who it was.
And then chickens are great for eggs, but they do bring rats. So, and then they bring roosters, and the roosters can be, some folks can not care and say, geez, it's background noise, and other folks could want to tear their hair out, you know?
But to
So-
answer your original question, I don't believe really that it necessarily opens up any ability for people to sell or have a business.
And,
Yeah.
and the way
Yeah.
it's written, because it's so vague, someone could say, well, you don't have any regulations that say that I can't sell things by the roadside.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's a gray area because we all know we drive through town, we see the egg stands,
Yes.
we see maybe some other sorts of stands for firewood or something.
Yeah,
you
yep,
know?
yep.
So they're there, and what's supposed to be there, what's not supposed to be there, what's supposed to be claimed on taxes, what would help.
Or even
Help
health
the town.
or even health regulations.
Yeah, yep, health,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult driving through town sometimes.
I mean, I get,
Lots of violations.
I mean, I get, people have chickens. They get
Yep.
a lot of eggs. They're not going to eat all the eggs. They can't give them all the eggs to their friends, and so they say, "Well, I'm going to sell them for
Yeah.
But that's why you have health regulations, because God forbid something happens to someone,
Yeah.
then you have an issue.
So I will mention to everybody, and maybe if it does get before planning, I had asked Lisa to reach out to you guys, or technically Lynn, because I think Lisa was up with FinCom at the time, but to reach out to you guys, and I think if you guys say the same thing in your planning meeting that you're saying here, which is like, you might want to pump the brakes, give it a little thought, craft something a little more carefully. And, there's no particular reason why it needs to be on the May town meeting warrant. It's just that we had somebody reach out to us and say, hey, why aren't we a right to farm? And we were all like, well, because it didn't pass the first time that it was presented at town meeting, mostly because somebody was not treating their cows humanely, and that just ended up getting, blown into proportions that everybody would be inhumanely treating their cows if we passed this. It didn't have anything to do with it at all, but it just, there was a lot of clutching of pearls as a result of that testimony. So, yeah, I will also mention it to the crew the next time we meet. And it probably was you, Mr. DeFrayis, that was.
It's like I don't have an issue
No, I hear
with
what
the
you're
right,
saying.
but I
though,
think
yeah.
you need to
Yeah.
really pay attention, because I've seen things with right to farm that go, how do what were they thinking?
Yeah.
So I think it's just a matter of take a real good look at it first, come up with something that makes sense, and so everyone understands what they can and can't do under the law, and then move forward with it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I don't think we're in a position as a board to even explain to people what it means, because we don't really know what it means. We're trying to be responsive. Okay, and then that brings us, unless anybody had any other goals. And again, it's not speak now, forever hold your peace, but
I would still like to see us do some one-to-one business outreach. We sent the letter. We're a small group, so I know it's really hard to do. But
so how would you envision that?
I don't I know that this is just a draft, but one of the things that's on here is have dialogue with the larger tenured businesses in town.
Maybe just set up some meetings
Yeah,
for
just
people?
not a crazy amount. As a committee, and maybe we do it individually. Maybe it's 5 businesses in next year.
So you're thinking like a walk of clay, presidential titanium kind of
exactly.
thing,
And just
Sullivan's.
what's on their mind as business owners in Hanson, and I think that could inform us of future goals for the committee.
I think that's a great idea. I love it. What do you think?
I get behind that.
Because it is overwhelming when we think about all the business, but if we break it down to a digestible amount, and honestly, I feel like the Hanson Business Network is a forum for the smaller businesses, but I don't know that we've ever done anything with the larger businesses.
I mean, there's 3 of us, so if we could each do 1 a quarter for the second through fourth quarter of the calendar year, we talk to 9 businesses before the end of the year.
Or,
Is that an
I mean,
insurmountable
or even like,
task?
we could, two of us
Yeah.
could go to, we're not gonna deliberate, so I mean,
Yeah.
we're just interviewing.
Yeah.
We're not gonna make a decision, but, yeah, does that seem, so would you possibly be able to tell us who other than the ones I just listed, I'm not sure who else we would say are the larger.
We have a list.
Sullivan's Presidential
Titanium.
Titanium, Walker Clay,
You're going on the highest revenue?
just,
Or
what,
Yeah, gut.
optics of like the size, I
Yeah.
guess, And then I'm not sure-
It's the Webster Printing, right?
Oh,
They're-
Webster
they're putting
Printing.
a new
Yep,
big
that's a
edition
good
out.
one.
I'd love to-
Yep, I would love to know
love to
about that,
Talk to
yeah,
them about
yeah.
that.
Hanson Green?
Hanson Green.
Hanson Grain, okay, yep,
Um,
and then I don't know who else, but is there a way for you to,
Yeah, we have a business list they'd put together, so we can take a look and
okay.
take a look at them. I can have
And-
Kim do some research on
And
it.
then is that something like, that Kim could work on getting us contact info, and then we
Sure.
could reach out and,
Yeah.
we can I don't know if we wanna do, I like the idea of two people going, if
Yeah.
we can pull it off that way. Just because you might hear something I don't hear, or you might think to ask something that I wouldn't think to ask. I don't know, it just, I think it makes
No, I
it
agree
seem
with you,
like
yeah.
more, like we're taking it more seriously, cause there's two of us from the committee and.
Is the committee considering adding 2 additional members or staying
Yeah,
at 3?
we are
So-
posting, I will start putting it out on Facebook saying, hey, a lot of people are posting on Facebook that they think that we should bring more business to Hanson. Do you wanna help us do that? I will start doing that.
That's because we think about goals, like hearing from the actual business owners about what's
I
on
think
their
that's an
mind might
excellent-
help
yeah.
shape our priorities.
Yep. I 100% agree, Chris, I love it.
And
Anything else?
I know it's mentioned on here, committee of 70 members, but
Yeah,
there would
that,
probably be alternates.
Well,
Mostly, right?
that's on there, but I think you say more a committee of 5. Like
Yeah,
you should-
exactly.
3 to 5, I think we'll change that number to.
Yeah.
Okay, I agree.
Okay, great, so that sounds good, and, grant updates.
So I'm going to be filing with the One Stop for this year, and also under our municipal vulnerability plan an action grant, and under the Department or Division of Ecological Restoration. Excuse me. So under the One Stop, there's going to be 7 grants I'm applying for, and that is just under $2.2 million in grants I'm going to pursue. And then under the DER and MVP is an additional just over 200,000. So we're looking at a total of about just under $2.4 million in grants that I'm going to pursue. And these are working numbers,
Yep.
so that number could, obviously change. But one is going after funding for our open space and recreation plan. One is for 228 High Street.
Yep.
Another one is for our housing production plan. Another one is for sidewalks on Main Street, which would go from High Street to Route 58. We have plans already in place that need to be revised, so the funding would go to revising those. And then the next phase after that would be for trying to get funding for construction. Another one is to look at getting a consultant and look at a 40R district along the Main Street corridor that would sort of mirror our existing flexible overlay
Yep.
zone, and either mirror the exact zone or expand. Another one is 212 Industrial Boulevard, which is the last lot within the industrial park that's town-owned and vacant. So just like we did with West Washington Street, get a consultant to look
So
at
is that I don't wanna say where they're dumping stumps, but where they're dumping stumps at
the one at the end of the
there.
cul-de-sac,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah,
So we'd look
okay.
at, establishing the resource area, creating a plan, figuring out what you could fit on that on that site. Another one, or the 7th one under the One Stop, is for Hawks Ave, underutilized buildings, to try and get monies to basically renovate those buildings and bring them back to use. The DER and MVP grant, one is for Pratt Place, to replace the culvert that's there. You can get a design grant, we figuring the design is probably gonna be around $120,000. So the grant would be pursuing design first, then a second phase would be grant for construction.
Well, so the Pratt Place, aren't we trying to go for ARPA funds for the construction?
We're trying multiple avenues
Okay,
to
all right.
attack Pratt Place.
Yeah.
So ARPA and grants to try and see which ones, if we're fortunate enough to say maybe get some grant money,
That'd be awesome.
and then maybe shift ARPA to something else.
That would be awesome.
And then the last one is attempting under the MVP to look at a generator for the library and
I was
senior
just
center.
gonna ask you about that because,
Now, the one thing they don't do is they don't fund diesel generators. The good thing is seeing a quote that has been given to the town, we're talking about a gas-fired generator, so I think we got a chance to go after the grant.
so we had
for
that
generator.
tabletop exercise yesterday at the Hanson Fire Department
Mhm.
where we were talking about emergency preparedness and, the obvious thing came up, which is like, by the end of it, I was like, oh my God, I need to take some medication for anti-anxiety because I was just like, all of the scenarios we were running through, like town hall floods because of pipe bursts. And on top of it, it's a storm and the communications are out between fire and police and there's freezing, water along Main Street, which has caused a car to crash. And it was just like they kept layering and layering. But one of the things that came up was a warming and cooling center. And like, as part of our contingency emergency stuff, we need to have that. And the most logical place is the library and the senior center. But without a generator, we can't do that. It would be impractical to have people at the fire station or the police station as a heating and cooling place. So I really hope we get some money for that. I really do.
Yeah. I'm going to take a shot at it and see what we can do. So again, it's just under 2.4 million. Again, they're working numbers. Now, I just going to throw out there, as we know about the MBTA issue, I can tell you that every one of these grants, non-compliance would make them all go away. Because even under the DER and the MVP grants, the statement is non-compliant towns, that would be a big consideration as to whether you get
Right, and that was in that second tranche, right? That was, so it wasn't, because originally on the NPTA community, there were those three sort of connected, like, what was it, Mass Works, there was a housing one, there were three
Mass Housing.
programs. But then they came back out and said, these additional 13 grant programs, if you're non-compliant,
it's taken into consideration.
which AKA, you will not be getting money if you don't comply.
And the one from the DER and regarding the MVP, these two just came across combis, and the language is in there that will be a determination for the grant.
So they're being rather consistent with, so that will be interesting, because our compliance date is,
December 31st,
Yeah.
2024.
so. But they've clawed back, like, so Milton, when they had all that stuff with Milton, they clapped right back on $140,000 grant. I don't know where they were at in expenditure or whatever, but it doesn't really seem to matter.
I
So-
don't know if it was we know that, I don't know if it would affect the grants that are currently being utilized. I don't know if they would shut the door and say, okay, pay for the rest, which would then kill all the projects. But I can tell you that these 9 that I'm mentioned, non-compliance would shut them all down.
Yep. Yeah.
So it's just food for thought.
I will not get on my soapbox about that.
The mass housing one that you see up there, mass housing is going to give us a grant for the development of the town-owned property on Phillips Street for housing, which is part of the Hanson Housing Authority.
Yep.
It's one of the 3 sites that are, owned by Hanson Housing Authority. 2, unfortunately, we can't do anything with at this point in time, but this third one we can. They're in the process of putting out to requesting for estimates from consultants, and then based on that, they'll come back to me and let me know what we'll get for looking at that property. So they'll get a consultant to do the same thing. What's the resource area? What's left? What can we get out of it?
Mhm.
will it yield anything?
Okay.
The CCC, which is the Cannabis Control Commission regulations, there was a recent article saying that they're moving forward. They've given, I guess, a 1-year delay. At some point, Hanson's going to have to promulgate regulations that conform to the new CCC regulations, or you're subject to fines and all that.
Yep.
And then the host community agreements. It seems that anything new will have to be compliant, and anything that's existing will have to be compliant, and that's the way they're playing. So.
Yeah, they're definitely changing the rules of engagement on
Yeah.
all of that, yeah.
Yep. So that's all I have at this point.
All right, did anybody have anything else?
Well, it was actually going to be my question, but you almost partially, I think you might have answered it anyway, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. Is the grants that we currently have in the pipeline that we've already have in the account,
Mhm.
those, they wouldn't take away that money?
I don't know.
Yeah, okay. So we
I
don't-
honestly, I
so-
don't know. I don't know if, let's say, because these grants follow like 2 fiscal years.
Yeah.
So in 2025, we'll still be within the fiscal year for those grants.
Mhm.
If for some reason Hanson was not compliant, would they shut off the tap to those grants? I don't know.
Okay.
And some of them, we may not have received the money yet.
Well, most of them are reimbursable.
Exactly.
So what's
yeah.
happening is we get the invoices, we kick them up to the state sends us the money, and then we pay.
So.
So it's not, because the reason I
Yeah,
said that
you
is
know
the money's
where I'm
not
going with
sitting
this.
in the bank account.
Yeah, but you know where
Yeah.
I'm going
We don't
with
have
this.
we don't have the money in
So
hand.
people like hard facts at town meetings, not the rumors or the Facebook things, right? So we have $2.4 million in the pipeline, possible grants that we
Future
might
possible grants.
Future,
we could-
potential future.
Potential.
If you were to get
Yeah.
all 9 of them,
Yeah.
you would have $2.3 million.
So whether or not 0 or up to 2.4 million, that would go away,
That would go away.
and people need to know that. But there's also a potential of additional monies going away.
There's also the potential of monies that are already in the pipeline on projects that are in the works going away, but I don't have a hard answer for that. The
Gotcha.
state hasn't said that, we're going to
Mhm.
cut you off and you'll have to pay for the rest of it. And that has not been said.
And we know that the library cannot even apply for a reimbursable grant
yeah.
if we do not pass.
Yeah.
So the new library thing, completely off
Exactly,
yeah. And the land grant that we bought the sleeper property with, the LAND grant, is one of the ones that they specifically listed as the 13 additional ones that we would not be eligible for. And that's how we bought a large amount of our open space that we
Yeah.
have gotten without taxpayer money. We've gotten through grants from LAND. I did very strongly suggest to the chair of planning that when the MBTA communities article is presented, that we be armed with information about historical grants that we would not have gotten if we did
Yeah.
not comply, and what future grants were in the pipeline that we would not be able to be granted if we did not
Exactly.
comply. Because these are real hard numbers, and for a town like Hanson that is looking at a $5 million override because we have a problem with growth, and our expenses are increasing and we don't have growth. We've been heavily relying upon the dream team of Tony DeFrayis and Lisa Green to get us grants so that we can move the needle on some very modest things, but important nevertheless. Master plan, open space plan, housing production plans. These are all things that if we weren't paying for them with grants, we'd have to pay for them from taxpayer money, or they just simply wouldn't get done.
I mean, the housing production plan, I did approach the CPC
I saw that.
to get
Yeah.
funding from the CPC, but I'm also going to pursue funding from a grant.
Okay.
You know,
gotcha.
so the one good thing is if we get the grant for up to $35,000, then we could use that towards the housing production plan, and then the CPC could say make up the difference.
Yep,
Yep.
which would be like 15,000 or something.
So
right?
you guys can kind of see where I'm going
I
with
see
it.
where
That
you're
we need
Yep.
we need this.
We need facts.
To-
I've put out
But we
an
need the townspeople to hear it, or this could be very a very close vote.
I,
The other thing
I
that I
put it,
think-
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I put an FAQ
Yeah.
package on our web page, the planning board web page, and I sent it over to our IT to put out on social media. So I did put an FAQ package together, so you can see it on our web page, on the planning board web page that lists, it's information directly from the state.
Okay.
And
So,
there's a
okay.
slide package,
Yep.
and
And is
The
this-
other thing that I think is super important is there seems to be a notion that this was willy-nilly developed, that there was no discipline around where the area was gonna be. So I did very strongly suggest to the chair of planning, again, that we be crystal clear that there were public forums, there were meetings, there was there's a consulting, there's regulations, like, this is not, like a casual thing that we just developed overnight, that it's thoughtful, it has to be compliant. And so I suggested that those steps that were taken prior to designating this as the MBTA community zone, that we should really articulate those in as simple a language but clear as possible, so that, again, people attending are armed with the facts and not just things that they've seen on Facebook. So I do agree, Kevin, though, that the grant money is absolutely key,
Exactly.
absolutely key.
And just remind me, is that a majority or 2/3?
Majority.
Majority.
Yeah.
simple majority vote.
Gotcha.
Yep.
All right. And was there one additional question? Did we have a brownfields assessment grant for that site on Main Street? I remember something about it in the past, but or was there some sort of litigation over that property?
Yeah, there's litigation continuing on that property, so until the
So,
town
yeah.
has control, the town cannot do anything on that
Gotcha.
site.
But we did get a brownfields grant for light control,
Okay.
which Lisa met with OCPC about this week to kind of figure out
Gotcha.
next
Yeah,
steps.
so what's happening out at Light Control right now is there was a consultant hired, Verdantis. They were out there this week doing drilling. They were out there last week establishing utilities, but they were out there this week doing drilling throughout the site. From the buildings towards the cell tower.
Yeah.
So they were doing drilling, coring, and soil samples.
And they were going to do one below the building as well?
They did go into the building, and there has been some borings done in the building previously, and they did some additional testing just to.
Nice.
I think that would be good to get that monkey off our back, so.
And last thing, last meeting, I was asking about the funds in the account. Did we get?
Oh, I'm sorry, Kevin. I did not look at that.
No problem. I just didn't know if we.
No,
did-
it's important
Yeah.
because if we're gonna do, say,
An
like a
article.
farmer's market, or we're gonna do Hanson Day, or or whatever we're gonna do, or like if we meet with the South Shore Chamber of Commerce and they say, well, you guys, we have something you could, but if you pay us, then we'll help you, or,
I will look it up, and I
No,
will
it would be
email
too
it
late
to
to
you.
have an article to ask for additional monies for economic development for the.
There was 1,500 started,
Yeah.
we probably.
So you
and
probably
it's
don't
and you
need
still
that.
and you still have there's still most of that, because I think what we spent it on was basically
The mailing.
the cards
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff like that.
We,
So-
we probably could ask for money, but we
Yeah.
could also ask in October, so.
Yeah, I will look it up,
Yeah, yeah.
and I will email it to you. I apologize for
sounds
not
good.
getting it.
Oh, not the most important. So.
Okay,
So-
did
Yeah.
anybody have anything else on that? On grants or any other subject? Okay, next meeting, what are people's thoughts?
Let's see.
Well, we know the Wednesday's been working good,
April is
And we-
super tricky.
and 5:30's been working well.
I'm gonna be away from the 15th to the 25th
I bet you are.
for some post-tax season R&R,
Exactly.
So
So you,
happy to meet the week before that, but it's only a couple weeks from now. But
I mean,
so you could do either April 10th or May 1st.
pretty much, yeah.
is April 10th gonna be okay for you? That seems
No, I'll be
kind of
stressed, but
jammed up. I mean,
gives me a break. Like I gotta go home now.
we could do May 1st instead.
That's fine with me.
Okay.
May 1st.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's fine.
May Day.
Okay,
I like it.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, no problem.
And
We can dance around the maypole.
Oh, God, okay, that's a visual.
what is the date of May town meeting, just in reference?
It's May 6th.
May 6th.
It's always right near John's birthday. Sometimes it's on John's birthday, but he knows what my priorities are, so.
Well, I should ask if you're all right with May 1st, then being so close to town meeting.
Yeah, I'll be fine, because it's the
Okay. So-
it's the Wednesday, so
5:30.
that seems to be working for
Yeah,
people,
that's
right?
great.
5:30,
Yeah,
okay, all right.
May
All right, if there's nothing else, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
All right, so move.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, fantastic. Thank you, Tony. That was an excellent meeting, and it was nice to have Brian in, and I feel like we're making progress.